The Hateful Eight, an American revisionist western written and directed by Quentin Tarantino in 2015, tells the story of a bounty hunter who is delivering a female fugitive to Red Rock, where she will be hanged and he will collect a $10,000 reward. Along the way, the pair get caught in a blizzard and are trapped with 6 other mysterious strangers in a roadside inn. In Lev Kuleshov's 1926 By the Law, a team of gold prospectors in the Yukon is involved in a murder. The 2 survivors, a husband and wife, subdue the killer, but then face an agonizing dilemma while cut off from civilization by the snow. They must decide whether to exact justice themselves or to wait and deliver him to authorities for justice. Viktor Shklovsky based his script on Jack London's story The Unexpected, written in 1907. The result, according to David Bordwell, is a concentration on the tense drama of 3 people trapped together in a tiny cabin. As I will demonstrate here, Tarantino has utilized Kuleshov's constructivist western, a highlight of the 1920s Soviet cinema and one of the most popular films of its time. During his visit to Moscow in 2004, Tarantino talked about his aesthetic debt to Eisenstein and Vertov, as well as he revealed that Boris Pasternak has long been his literary idol.
Когда в 11 утра все появились в гостинице «Националь», на ресепшене сообщили, что где-то в 9:30 он уже ушел гулять один. Он гулял в течение 3 часов по городу. Он сказал, что он обожает гулять один по городу. Очень смешно, потому что его агенты месяц согласовывали с нами род охраны, англоязычного телохранителя и так далее. Но господин Тарантино был абсолютно счастлив.
Бог режиссеров, как называют Квентина Тарантино один из фан-сайтов, ушел в народ. От охраны он оторвался по собственной культурной программе. МХАТ, музей кино и могила Пастернака. Папарацци попытались устроить фотосессию на кладбище в Переделкино, и впервые за время визита фирменная улыбка Тарантино казалась натянутой. Режиссер «Криминального чтива» и «Бешеных псов», сценарист «От заката до рассвета» и «Прирожденных убийц» в самолете читал «Доктора Живаго», в интервью рассказывал о Дзиге Вертове, в отелях рассматривал псевдорусскую живопись. Нарочитое русофильство очень приглянулось нашей прессе, оставалось только снять любителя гамбургеров за русской трапезой.
Спасибо, милые цветы. Принесите мне их вечером в номер. Сейчас я иду в ресторан.
A mastermind of intricate cinematic puzzles, in his latest film Tarantino was able to produce an exquisite tribute to Soviet cinema. Further, I will consider some specific intersections between the 2 films as evident through similarities between certain episodes, specific images, and motif structure.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I have a pretty good knowledge, all right, of Russian cinema. The thing that was so fantastic about going to the Moscow Cinema Museum was, just got me really excited to go home and watch a bunch of the different Russian films that I have but I've never seen. To watch
storyboard of the film. Oh, this is the storyboards for The Cranes Are Flying?
Comparing certain mise-en-scènes in both films also helps establishing common narrative archetypes or visual rhymes, as for instance, in case of Tarantino's possible paraphrase of the opening of Alexander Askoldov's masterpiece Commissar. The main title and actors' names are superimposed on the panoramic long take that reveals vast spaces with horses trotting across the screen as the camera slowly travels in a dolly shot to keep statues of Jesus and Maria with Jesus respectively in the foreground focus. Tarantino's films are often regarded as a work of collage. Kill Bill, for instance, is rooted in the Hong Kong and Japanese martial art films. However, his tributes to various genres and cinematic traditions have not included so far the discussion of the Russian cinema legacy.
to watch them. I have a pretty good library of international cinema. Unlike anyone has a library, you haven't seen everything, you haven't read every book in your library, all right? And so just being in a place that's all about Russian cinema and Soviet cinema got me really excited. And part of the fun thing of being a lover of cinema, whether it be about a certain director or a genre or a country, is you get on a kick. And after you get that kick, then you want to see a bunch of Russian movies, all right? And I'm officially on that kick right now.
During his visit to Moscow, Tarantino was walked through the Museum of Russian Cinema by its then director Noam Kleiman. Analyzing the raw footage from that occasion, posted on YouTube by one of the reporters or by someone from the museum's staff, one can easily register what exactly made the American director feel fascinated about the artifacts he was shown. Tarantino's emotional response while standing in front of the battleship Potemkin or Cine-Eye posters serve as a priceless testament to his admission during the Moscow press conference that he, quote, knows Russian cinema pretty well, end quote. It is that short visit to the International Moscow Film Festival in 2004, I believe, served Tarantino as a powerful impetus, not just to take a closer look at the Russian segment of his home film library, he promised doing that as soon as he returns to Los Angeles, but also to directly quote from some of its prominent artists in The Hateful Eight, the movie he was already conceptualizing in his mind and would begin writing a script for soon thereafter.
One more thing about that, though, is the fact that it's one thing to see something on videotape, or it's another thing to see something in a museum, but to actually be in a room where you're like right next to the actual costumes for Ivan the Terrible, you're right next to the original drawings for this film or that film, or you're right next to Eisenstein's camera and everything. It manages to take it off of the museum wall and put it in your soul. I feel even more of a connection now between Russian cinema and myself, and I can't wait to explore that connection.
The Hateful Eight follows 8 strangers who for different reasons are traveling to Red Rock. Due to harsh weather conditions, the strangers are forced to wait out the storm in the comfort of Minnie's haberdashery. Kuleshov's By the Law is a piece about a group of 5 gold prospectors who become tangled in a murder, and only 3 of them survive. This limited set of cast members challenge Kuleshov and Tarantino to create a level of intrigue and depth in their films. Moreover, both The Hateful Eight and By the Law feature just one female character who plays a major role in otherwise almost exclusively male cast. Setting is central to fueling tensions between characters in both films. By the Law opens with a shot of a small camp, the landscape bare except for a lone, naked 3 standing above the shore. Harsh weather, brutal distances, and uncompromising landscape force the characters to either work together or to deceive one another. Both Kuleshov and Tarantino use a snowstorm and flood as the staple to fix characters to one location, justifying the events to unfold while maintaining the spatial unity. However, Tarantino in his signature style disrupts the unity of time when he inserts a part that precedes the first 2/3 of the film narration and undermines chronological linearity of the story. Themes of greed, violence, and betrayal play an important role in each film and are the motives behind most of the action. In The Hateful Eight, the bounty hunters transport Daisy and the bodies in hope of getting a reward. In By the Law, 5 gold miners find a large deposit. However, unfair treatment causes one of them to assault his companions. Each film demonstrates how money and morality come into conflict, forcing people to suspend their conscience in favor of greed. The dining table in both films functions as a communal space for all the parties, as a sort of Switzerland in its neutrality. Characters gather around these tables to eat, and in the process, bridges between antagonists are built. But the actual killings also happen either while the personages are consuming their food or in close proximity of the table, thus making 2 activities paradoxically and intrinsically bound. Kuleshov, surprisingly, predates Tarantino in capturing the spectator's attention to this repelling juncture, as he clearly dwells, even savors, the face of a victim just shot in his head and now been thoroughly smashed in a half-full dish. Obviously, Tarantino enjoys technological advantages when he uses colorful gore in conveying a fountain of blood, something neither Kuleshov nor Eisenstein still could not afford. However, the Bolshevik violence on screen easily competes with that of the Hollywood brand.
Ну, что скажешь?
Boiling coffee tea as a symbol of highly charged emotional condition also becomes synonymous with outbursts of violence. It is first introduced in Kuleshov's film, but the same theme is continued through Tarantino's work. After Michael Dennin enters the cabin almost immediately, he is greeted with a cup of coffee. In response, he proceeds to fire his shotgun, killing 2 men from his party. From this point, the coffee is set as an element linked to violence. Later, as Hans Nelson is brutally attacking Dennin, the beaten is clipped with split coffee on the floor. The ensuing feeling is that his emotions have boiled and peaked just as the pot has. Montage creates a visual metaphor. In Tarantino's film, the coffee is originally used as the device to bring the characters closer together through common ground. As new characters enter the haberdashery, they are greeted with the warm beverage. The coffee serves as a topic of discussion, remedy for the storm, and point of general interest.
Один из парней не тот, за кого себя выдает.
The poisoned coffee becomes the violent murder tool. The Hateful Eight too collides the images of drastic nature and dimly lit claustrophobic cabin. Drastic setting becomes a place where the characters must reconcile their sense of civility.
No one could trust anybody else, and the paranoia amongst the characters was so strong. And it's trapped in that enclosure for so long that the paranoia just bounced off all the walls until it had nowhere to go but the fourth wall, out into the audience.
In their self-appointed trial of Dennin, the Nelsons consult a portrait of the Queen, a symbol and icon of their civilization and ultimately morality. The first shot of Tarantino's movie is that of a crucified Jesus, covered in snow, also a reminder of the ultimate high authority in the entangled fates of the 8 characters. On several occasions, Tarantino's characters appeal to Abraham Lincoln's authority, who represents the secular power, by consulting and reading out loud portions from his alleged letter. These interactions, shaped by the setting, drive much of the dramatic tension of the film. Edith claims to Dennin that they will treat him by the law. In The Hateful Eight, Oswaldo Mowbray, who pretends to be the hangman for Red Rock, states the difference between officially sanctioned justice and so-called frontier justice in a monologue. He tells Daisy the Merc that if you are found guilty, the people of Red Rock will hang you in the town square. And as the hangman, I will perform the execution. That's what civilized society calls justice. For the latter part of the film, Kuleshov plagues Mr. and Mrs. Nelson with the ability to determine their personal brand of justice. In The Hateful Eight, exactly like in By the Law, the 2 survivors, Chris and Warren, decide to take law into their own hands by hanging Daisy. Chris, as sheriff, reads out her sentence that she will be hanged by the neck, similar to Kuleshov's mock trial of Dennin by Edith and Hans. This notion of legal justice versus frontier, or self-appointed justice, is consistent with the type of justice exercised in By the Law. The key difference, however, is that the hanging of Daisy the Merc is purportedly legal, because Chris Mannix performs it in his alleged capacity as sheriff. In By the Law, Hans enacts justice in a similar manner, but before a high authority, rather than as a state-sanctioned representative of the legal system. Edith reads from the Bible as Michael is led to his execution. This signifies that Michael's life is no longer dependent on Edith or Hans, but is in God's hands instead. The key difference between the 2 execution scenes is that Daisy's hanging is successful, whereas Michael Dennin escapes his fate. In By the Law, justice is ultimately the purview of God and his authority. Conversely, the ending of The Hateful Eight emphasizes that humanity's conception of justice is flawed. None of Tarantino's characters truly acknowledge Mannix's position as sheriff, whereas in By the Law, the power of God as a moral authority is absolute and overrides the self-presumed authority claimed by the Nelsons. In the early 20s, Lev Kuleshov emerged as an important figure in the Russian avant-garde movement, becoming a pioneer of early Soviet cinema, most famous for what became known as the Kuleshov effect. This experiment occurred in the context of the fundamental avant-garde demand that art should cease representing life and begin transforming it. Tarantino's theoretical inspiration recalls a similar method of collage, demonstrating the filmmaker's ability to manipulate reality through editing. Tarantino's manipulations occur less on the level of editing, but through constant references to the internal mechanics of his medium when he lays bare the device, as Viktor Shklovsky, who authored the script for Kuleshov's film, has put it. This emphasis on form recalls constructivist cinematography, notably Dziga Vertov's The Man with the Movie Camera. The town of Red Rock, where Tarantino's heroes are heading to, might be his nod to the Soviet cinematic traditions, while the very notion of blizzard brings in the metaphysical connotations of similar cataclysmic episodes in Russian literature, from Leo Tolstoy's short stories to Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago. In Eisenstein's Strike, the gushing blood of a slaughtered bull served as a potent metaphor for the violent oppression of the proletarian revolution. In Tarantino's treatment, this metatextual framing functions as a springboard, triggering double reference to Soviet film theory and to the iconoclastic approach to the art of filmmaking in general. No doubt, Tarantino's interests in cinema go far beyond Kuleshov's methods, and Violence in the Hateful Eight is meant to comment on the brutality of American history and society. This is an exploration of the racial, judicial, and cultural norms of the nascent American society, as much as it is a film about the intellectual history of the world cinema.
And as far as Pasternak is concerned, I mean, and this is not, I'm not saying this to flatter you all because I'm here, but there's not a country in the world that has more of a commitment to literature and to the written word, all right, than Russia. I mean, it's just hands down. I mean, just driving around Moscow, the little bit I've seen of it, all right, there's, a big giant statue of a poet here, all right, Dostoevsky statue over there. I mean, there's no statues of poets, all right, in America. There's not even statues of poets in England. There's no Keats statue in England. There's no Tennyson statue in England, all right. Go to the grave of Pasternak, and then some of the, I think there's probably some, in that same graveyard, there's other famous Russian writers there. It's just like, I can't wait to, encounter their ghost, I hope.
The power and genius of Quentin Tarantino is in his ability to create a world where the spaghetti western stylistics organically coexists with the Soviet film school legacy.